Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's discuss what's happening with the latest in the Tulsa shooting of how 4 people were killed, 3 people were killed, the gunman shot and killed himself, and the implications of that. Also, I want to get your take on what President Biden, how he plans to address the nation this evening at 7:30 from the White House. What do you expect the president to say as we have this larger discussion about mass shootings, access to guns, and so much more relating to the latest killings that have been happening across the country? I would love to hear what your perspective is, so I want you to join us in that conversation. Also, let's talk a little bit about the latest with Nipsey Hussle's killer. His alleged killer his trial starts tomorrow for Eric Holder Jr., and LA is not the same, and yet the hip-hop community is saying that this may not even bring the closure that they need. What do we need to focus on? We'll check in with Culture crew member Rashad Staten to get his take on that situation. And Elon Musk is telling workers, hey, if you don't return back to work, no more rework work, you're going to just be seen as resigned and terminated. So we'll have that conversation when supervisors say, enough is enough, get back to work. All of that and a whole lot more, so stay with us. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Very excited to have a conversation with you about this situation that we're seeing in this country. Let me just tell you now here, folks. I don't remember a time in our history where we're seeing so much violence day after day after day after day. I have to tell you, folks, it's hard to watch. It's hard to really take in, and it's very hard to grieve and process what we are all experiencing right now. And as I've been kind of keeping up to date on some of these latest shootings, the big thing that comes across my mind is any place safe in America? Is there any place of refuge from the violence that we're seeing? I mean, we're seeing violence taking place at your most common public spaces, from supermarkets to churches to just open air situations, open air spaces. And I have to say, I am deeply concerned about this level of violence that is happening at such a rapid rate. Are you concerned about this? Are you concerned that there's places that we often take for granted? Let me just say this, often take for granted. When you go to the supermarket, you don't expect some person to run in the supermarket and start shooting the place up. Let me just tell you how deep it was for me. I went to a Walmart with my family over the weekend, and I actually started to contemplate. Now we're in checkout. And the way the space is configured, we're hundreds of feet away from the door. But it crossed my mind that in this public, large super Walmart, someone can come in here and start shooting. And it automatically made me think, okay, where are the exits in this place? If someone were to start shooting, where's my family? How will we start to navigate through down the aisles? I really started to think about this. And it didn't scare me as much as it made me more aware that we're really living in a time where public safety has to be on everyone's mind. Like, you can't go into a space, and this is not about fear mongering. This is not about trying to make the world a bad or ugly place. This is the reality. This is the facts. I'm probably like so many of you, I'm still trying to process the mentality, the thinking, the motivation behind all of this stuff that's happening. I'm still trying to process, just the fact that someone can get so upset that they can start to devalue the lives of other people. I'm right there, folks. And so now in every place I go, I have to think about exits. Okay. My family's here. I've taught my children, don't go running around in public spaces unless we know exactly we can see you. I mean, this stuff is hitting home for me. And I'm wondering, and I wanted to have this conversation specifically with you as our viewers and our watchers, because I want your perspective on this. So please post your comments on YouTube and on Facebook. Are you starting to think like this? Is the conversations or the news stories is everybody's talking about violence, shooting, mass shootings here and this, that. Is it starting to play on your mind? I would love to hear what you have to say, because here's why, folks. And post your comments, and we'll certainly get to your comments. This latest shooting that happened in Tulsa, and I want us to frame this in its proper context. This, according to the United States government, a mass shooting is when 4 or more people are killed, right? So you had 4 people that are killed, and I want to make sure I correct myself. 4 people were killed, and then the gunman shot himself, right? So this is considered to be a mass shooting in the eyes of law enforcement. But I want us to make sure that we don't, and particularly with Tulsa, this is a mass shooting. Whereas what we saw 100 years ago in Tulsa is a massacre. There's a difference. There's a difference. So I want us to first, I felt like I needed to share that, just because I don't want people to diminish what happened 100 years ago to Black folks, to say, oh, no, that was a massacre and then 4 people were killed. No. There's a difference. There's a difference. This is a mass shooting, so I think that we should put that in its proper context. But the thing is about this mass shooting in Tulsa, this guy, the gunman, was upset with his doctor because he had to get back surgery. He got the surgery that he needed, and as a result of that, he started experiencing severe pains. He complained to his doctor. I guess his doctor couldn't help him or accommodate him the way this man wanted him or expected the doctor to do so. And as a result of that, he goes on a killing spree, vowing to kill the doctor for not relieving his pain after a back surgery. I want y'all to just think about that. Like, how many times does that happen? How many times do people go through surgery and then you have like these side effects? How many times are we prescribed medication? You have some certain side effects that you don't want, that, we didn't welcome. How many times, right? But for something like that, this wasn't a quote unquote a political or politically oriented or politically driven shooting. This was a man who was tired of the pain from a surgery. And as a result of that, he vows to kill the doctor. And then he put in his letter that the law enforcement officials found that anyone that got in his way of killing the doctor will be killed too. I want to get your thoughts, get your your perspectives on this, because as much as we're talking about guns, and then I have to say, and we'll be talking about this as well, the president plans to address the nation this evening at 7:30 p.m. from the White House. And he's going to talk particularly about mass shootings. He's going to talk about Buffalo. He's going to talk about Uvalde. He's going to talk about Tulsa. And I want us to put this, I want you as the viewer, as one who is a citizen of this country like me, I want us to start to create our own context on how this conversation should be had. This is not about regurgitating talking points. This is about us being critical in our thinking and understanding how do we really get to the root of this dilemma. To me, I'm going to keep saying this, folks, this is not only about gun access. This is not about AR-15 manufacturers. This is about a country and people in a country who have lost their sense of reality and their humanity, that they feel like they can go and that the only best way to address their issue is they can go and commit murder on anyone, in some cases indiscriminately. But in the Buffalo situation, the beef goes on, is imposed on a whole people. This is where we are in this country. So I want us to really start to think through what is going on. And I would highly encourage us, because we're going to talk a little bit more about it, get into the details of it, to hear what the president has to say. But we do have to figure this thing out. This cannot be left on the shoulders of political officials. This has to be addressed, not just from the legislative side. This has to be addressed from the cultural side. This has to be addressed from the social implications from that angle. This has to be a multi-pronged approach to dealing with what's going on in this country. Too many times, and then I'm gonna just want to make this point, and then we're going to get to your thoughts. Too many times in this country do we take a large, complex issue and then try to categorize it, try to diminish it. The conversation is, oh, okay, it's about gun access. And then it expand a little bit and they say, oh, okay, it's about gun access and mental health. We can't do that. And the reason I'm saying that is simply because we take our eyes off the big picture of culture, the big picture of the glorification of violence in this country, the big picture of this idea that when you have a problem, the best way to solve the problem is through violence. Those are the angles that I think that are missing from mental health, gun access conversation. A lot of times we tend to believe that issues are outside of ourselves. That's not true. The fact is, we have the power within our own selves to change the reality and the condition of ourselves, our families, our communities, and this country. We have that power internally, intrinsically. We have that power. However, we have not been given the necessary tools to tap into that part of ourselves for us to think through. We've always been told and conditioned to look to someone outside of ourselves to change our condition. And I'm saying today, we can't be like that anymore in this country. This country is under tremendous strain. And part of the strain is is the lack of true engagement, involvement from the citizens of this country to say enough is enough. It's not just enough for the president to say it or for a couple of lawmakers to say it. It has to be a choir of a chorus of folks that are saying, I'm saying that's from us. It has to say, we have to say enough is enough. All right, let me get to your comments so we can continue to have this discussion. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Even if we disagree, so be it. But let's at least shine light on your perspective. And then maybe we can find some common ground here, at least getting the conversation started on this particular platform. Keena, let's go to some of our comments that we're getting in from so many people. And folks, I highly advise that you let your friends and family know that we're having this very, very important discussion today here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. JP said, it's the people, not the guns. People will figure out new ways to kill if guns aren't accessible. And JP, that's the point that I'm getting to. That's the place that I'm at. It's the people. It's the people. The one big thing that I see in this country that we do, and this is a huge part of the culture, and JP, you tell me if you agree with this or not. One of the things is that we when we see all of this like violence, when we see this level of pain, and when we see all of this happening, our leaders come before us and say, look, we're all good people. A person goes into a supermarket and shoots and kills Black people with no regard, no remorse, with careful planning, not a good person. A teenager who has been bullied, who has been ridiculed and mocked, decides that the only way to take out his pain is not by talking to somebody, not even confronting his people who have bullied him, but he goes to a elementary school and mows down 19 children and 2 adults. Not a good person. Let's call it for what it is. The reality is that we have people in this country, and we don't know who they are because there's no sign on any one of us that says, I'm good, I'm bad. I think evil, I think righteous. And nobody has that, right? But you want to believe, we often give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that one of the big issues in understanding and trying to process all of this is not seeing things the way they are. Instead, we look through the rose-colored lens and try to see things the way we hope for them to be. Y'all catch that? We got to see what it is in front of us based on reality and not based on our hopes, dreams, fantasies, aspirations. No, it can't be from that rose-colored lens. We have to take those off and see this for what it is. Same thing if we look at our political leadership. You got to look at who they are for what they have said, what they have done, what they have demonstrated. I think that once we start working from that place, then we can get to a new place of understanding what we need to do in order to address this problem. But if you think that Peyton Gendron or Salvador Ramos or any of these other killers are good people, then we won't be prepared for another tragedy. It's going to be very hard. Let's go to Linda. Linda has something to say, and I appreciate that. And JP, thank you so much for your comment. Linda, let's go. Linda said, it is the type of gun used. True. AR-15s. And look, let me just tell you, in this Tulsa case, folks, the Tulsa case showed this guy, the gunman, bought the gun the same day he committed the killing. The same day. So you mean to tell me that I can go, and this Tulsa, of course, is in Oklahoma. That was the case, what we saw with Salvador Ramos in Uvalde, Texas. He turned 18. He was able to get an automatic weapon. Peyton Gendron was able to get an automatic weapon in a very, very short period of time. So you mean to tell me that's okay? Now, I'm, to your point, Linda, I'm wondering if the manufacturers created or manufactured that gun with the intent to kill people. I don't know. You see my face, though. But it is about the gun. But we got to figure out, okay, well, if they got we're having the background checks, red flags, and all of these other checks and balance elements that we need to have in order before a person purchases a gun. Do you? It's out the window. Out the window. Great point, Linda. Let's go to Infamous Kiki. Then we're gonna take our first pause. Infamous Kiki, you put it up there. You say, look, I look for the X's any place I go, especially with my kids. I have a license to carry and I carry. I've had tactical and handgun training. I go once a month for the training. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you 1,000%. And, it's the old saying, like, you better get ready before, you got to get ready before you stay ready. It's that type of thing. It's that type of thing. And I'm very serious about when you go out in public spaces now, folks, don't play around and think that none of this stuff is going to happen. Please don't be like that. Don't do that. Because guess what? It happens. It happens, and it is happening right now in modern day America. This is really happening. That people can go into a public space. You could be at the bank. You could be, and I'm not trying to create fear. What I'm trying to do is get you to see the situation, the circumstance for what it actually is. It only takes a moment before somebody snaps, and then they want to let their anger, their pain, their rage out on innocent people. Takes a quick moment. Man had a back problem. He had back pain after surgery. How many of you have had surgery, and then even after the surgery, you are still experiencing some pain? Do you go as far as to say, I'm going to kill the doctor because the pain is just too much to bear? Or do you go to the pharmacist and say, look, I need some medication for this? But look how easy and quick a situation can get out of hand over something like that. Look, I got to take a first pause. When we come back, more of your comments. We're having a conversation here, folks. We're having a conversation. I'm going to break down to you just a little bit what we can expect from the president, and keep your comments going, Facebook, YouTube. But when the president is planning to speak to the American people tonight, what are your expectations? Let's throw that into the mix, and let me get your perspective on that. So we got to take a quick break. When we come back, more conversation, more of your thoughts. Keep the comments going and stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Welcome you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new, unsettling force, and we are powerful. New, unsettling force, and we are here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk, and we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change.
Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience as we fight these interlocking injustices together.
When we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third Reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.
I know justice is coming soon.
Hey, do you believe that of today?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture. And today we just wanted to start off the show having a discussion with you about what is happening in this country around mass shootings. Now, let me just share with you at 7:30 this evening, President Joe Biden will be addressing the nation from the White House, talking about what he plans to do or try to address the issue of mass shootings. And let me just share with you a little bit about what the White House has put out. Keenan, let's put that quote on it on the screen for us, please, brother, where he plans to discuss the recent tragic mass shootings and the need for Congress to act to pass common sense laws to combat the epidemic of gun violence that is taking lives every day. And this is according to the White House in announcing the speech. The recent mass shootings, his push on Congress. Now, I highly encourage you to listen to what the president has to say, even if you don't agree with his politics, right? That's the man in charge sitting in the seat right now. So trying to hear what will the president do to address this. Now, underneath of all of that, these mass shootings, they come from a lot of different places. They come from a place of racism. They come from a place of xenophobia. They come from a lot of materialism. These mass shootings are not just happening in a vacuum, folks. There's a reason why people are upset. I saw some of you putting in the YouTube chat that capitalism is one of the driving forces of that at this point, and this adds to the conversation beyond gun access and mental health, capitalism and people trying to figure out how they're going to live a decent life without losing their homes, their car, without having to, their children's lives being uprooted. I mean, capitalism, we are all experiencing inflation right now. Prices are going up. Wages are not going up to meet the demands of the prices. So people have to cut back. People have to make hard, decisions right there at the dinner table, trying to figure out how they're going to, pay Peter and how they're going to pay Peter and Paul, or they need to take Peter to pay Paul. They're trying to figure all of these things out. Healthcare continues to be an issue in this country, right? So we're seeing all of these dynamics at play. And then guess what? People reach for the gun. Out of their pain, out of their frustration, out of their wanting to try to figure out something. Then you have, again, racism, sexism, hatred, rage. People are upset in this country for a number of reasons. So we can't act as if, this is just about, guns. The person is crazy. No. In this country, so many other things are factors. And we, as the citizenry, we need to be more cognizant and say, okay, starting with ourselves, am I helping in changing the dynamics in my family, in my community, or am I hurting the chances for me to save a life or for somebody's life to be saved in the neighborhood? Are you helping or are you hurting? And I know that sometimes it's hard to take on that level of responsibility when you're thinking about paying bills, when you're thinking about your children's education, when you're thinking about, getting insurance, when you're thinking about, moving to a place. You got to think about all of these things, but you have to also think about the fact that we are living in a violent society. On top of all of that, we are living in a violent society. So the president is planning to address, I think he's going to address more of the legislative side, obviously, right? Background checks, red flags. He's going to address, why are 18-year-olds getting high-powered rifles with little to no obstacles or challenges? You're going to sell an AR-15 to an 18-year-old. He can't drink, but he can hold a gun. They talk about common sense laws. That's one of the common sense laws. So he can't drink, but he can hold a gun. Let's go back to your comments. Make sure y'all post your comments, and I would love to get your perspective. Continue to post your thoughts on this. All right, Damon. My guy, Damon. Damon, it's always good to hear from you, brother. Damon checked in and shared his perspective on this. Damon, you brought up the point that I made at the beginning of the show, where I'm talking about everywhere I'm going now, I'm looking at exit signs. I'm looking at what's the best way to keep me and my family safe in this public space, right? And that's the time we're living in. Damon, you said you've been doing that for years, scoping out where the exits are in public places. I want to know how to get out. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm serious. I want to know how to get out. A small argument. You think about something like this, and Damon, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your comment. Here, check this out. You think about if you at a restaurant and someone didn't like the service, or someone felt like they shouldn't have to pay for an item on the bill. How a small thing like that can escalate to possibly becoming a violent situation. I mean, and folks, trust me, I try to be the optimist on these things, but I'm like, Farajii, you gotta think based on reality. You can't look through this situation through rose-colored glasses and lens. You gotta think based on where people's minds are. this thing can get off, can go left real quick. I remember sitting in, this is a couple of years ago, my wife and I went to a movie theater, and apparently, you know, we're sitting like the third row from the wall, from the back of the theater. So we're the third or fourth row. Another guy is sitting, it was a white man that was sitting at the front as the first row from the wall, and then a black man sitting in the second row. So this white couple is having conversations and chit chat, and this black man is getting irritated because he can't hear the movie. And guess what? The black man says, "Hey man, you need to stop talking. We're trying to watch the movie." The white man said some words. The black man gets up, turns his back. Now I'm sitting in front of this brother. When he turned his back, I told my wife, "Let's go. Time to go. I'm out." This thing, first, you too close, bruh. You too close. You're in a little movie theater aisle. I don't know what you packing because nobody checks for guns or anything. I don't know what your situation is. I've been in enough moments. I come from Baltimore, so you know I've been in enough places to be like, no, argument, I'm out of here. I'm done. And especially with my wife, no, we done. Come on, let's go, baby. So I move out. I can leave the theater, and I tell the officer, they had a police officer, and I said to the officer, you might want to go and check in the theater because there was a little disturbance in the back. Then I went to the manager. All right, that was a disturbance. I want my money back, but we can talk about that later. I'm out of here. It's just that type, it's just those type of moments. And I know some of us, you know, we like, well, what's going on? And man, I don't have time for that today. People's minds are not in the right place, especially when it comes to confronting other people. So we have to be knowledgeable and aware of those things. All right. So Damon, I appreciate you. Danita, let's go to your comment really quickly because Danita talks about the access to guns, which I think is absolutely insane that you got these teenagers doing this. Danita said, but they won't be able to take out so many people without those ARs, talking about the AR-15s. They probably won't. But they should have never been sold those. They should never been given our opportunity. 17, 18 years old, and you walking around with an AR-15. Danita, I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Let's go to Mike V. Mike V said, when he went to the movies, check this out, folks. Mike said, when I went to the movies, there were armed security at the entrance and sitting during the movie in some cases. I mean, it's sad. Some of us, we get mad when we see police in certain spaces. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my God, why are the police here? Why are the police there? Because anything can happen. And if something does happen, look, that's why I'm not behind the whole, you know, let's totally abolish police. We need police. We need to have good policing. But in this day and time, you need to have police. That's what they're there for. So I hear you, Mike. I got you. Thank you, brother, for checking in. All right, let's go to Gregory. Gregory Harris. Gregory, you said, yeah, brother, you have to serve in the Navy for 30 years as a police officer. Oh, you have been serving in the Navy for 30 years as a police officer. I always did that, and it's a good habit to have, especially in this country. Facts. My dad has been working in law enforcement for many, many years. He's always teaching me. I mean, you know, I remember as a young boy, he'd be like, son, when you go out to the places, you know, make sure this. And now I'm like that. I'm like my dad. I'm like my dad. You know what I mean? I'm trying to teach my 8-year-old, keep your head on a swivel, son. Always look around. Don't look down. You know what I mean? Like you got to teach your children how serious the time that we're living in. You know what I mean? You don't want to take away, you don't want to completely take away their innocence or their view of the world. So you got to find that proper balance. But no, that's what we're supposed to do, especially as men of the community, men of the household. You're supposed to wait. And even if you're not, even for women, my wife, I teach her like, hey, you should know these things. She's always talking about security. She's always talking about making sure that she's in a safe place. If you walk in your place, and we talked about this, y'all remember, folks, we had a conversation about just last week about intuition. If you walk into a place and your intuition, your gut feeling is saying, this is not a good place to be in. The energy is off in this place. This ain't the good vibe for you. Get the hell out. I'm serious. Stop silencing the voice within because you want to have a good time. Find another place to have a good time. But in this day and time, you got to follow your intuition. You got to follow it. Gregory, thank you so much, brother, for posting that. Let's go. Let me hear from B Dizzle. B Dizzle said, I've been thinking like that before the mass shootings. Is just how things are in my area and in this country. It's not the 60s and 70s anymore. People are just on edge and make reckless decisions. Woo! Reckless decisions and being on edge. And look, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Dizzle, you know it. I agree with you 1000%. I try to really give people the benefit of the doubt that, you know, everybody's cool. I don't know where your head is. You might just had a bad day. You can be really a good person. You can be thoughtful. And we all are, this can happen to any one of us. You're thoughtful, you're considerate, but sometimes you just have a bad day, a rough day. And so the smallest thing can set you off. And that's the other part about us having the power to change things. Like, we need to learn how to do that level of self-control and conflict resolution within. So that way we don't take it out on somebody and then they take it and then they respond in the same kind of spirit. And next thing you know, an explosion happens. So you're absolutely right, Dizzle. Let's go to Brother King Lee. Brother King Lee, always good to talk to you, brother. You said, my parents taught me and my siblings in the 1960s and 1970s to always be aware of our surroundings. In 2001, I took it a step further by moving to Germany from DeKalb County, Georgia. Yeah. And I'm sure, Brother King Lee, you probably remember, I watched this powerful HBO documentary on this, and this is a little bit off topic, but it made me think about the Atlanta's missing and murdered, the Atlanta children that were killed at that time. And that famous television announcement came across the screen. It's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? I can only imagine living in that type of fear where, you know, you want your children to go out and be children and play and things, but then you got this gray cloud over you and your children and the well-being of your children that they might be taken and all of that. So, you know, I'm sure you know that, Brother King Lee. So that's one of the things. It's like, now this ain't just Atlanta. We got this cloud over America. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for saying that. Let's go to Chandra Edwards. Chandra pointed out, she said, the common denominator for every mass shooting are guns accessed by people who shouldn't have them. Nobody checking your state of mind when you buying a gun. Some of these states, the laws are so lax when you're talking about buying a gun. Nobody is saying, oh, wait a minute, hold on. You buying a high-powered rifle here. What you plan to do with that? Nobody's checking in. This is like a regular transaction. Like, you want some milk? You want some bread? Oh, you want this AR-15 too? Sure. You want that? How you want that? You want that in the plastic or paper bag? Nobody's asking. It's just so. And now we want to have these big conversations about it, but the reality is we love it. So I absolutely agree with you, Chandra. It's about people who shouldn't have them. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Let's go to Davey. Davey said something very important. Davey said, this is not a cultural issue that needs to be remedied by Black folk. This sickness is not of our doing, nor do we control the systems that produce this outcome. Here's the thing, though, Davey. And I appreciate that, and I agree with you to a certain extent. Now, we've been talking about mass shootings, 4 or more murders, right? In a given situation, a given incident. But can't we apply the same level of the same, I would say the same metric? Can't we apply that to what we see in the Black community? When there's a drive-by, remember back in the 80s and 90s, drive-bys, especially, I grew up in Baltimore. My aunt lived in Los Angeles. She would often talk to me about drive-bys, like those situations where our people would shoot indiscriminately at a playground, basketball court, school. Even now, the gun's just going off. Lil Ray Ray. Bah, 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 bah. And guess what? We don't see it as a mass shooting. We don't even think of it as domestic terrorism. But it is. It really is. Because it has created such an uncomfortable space to just be outside, sitting on your porch. And some of you who are watching, you probably either come from neighborhoods that used to be like that, or you may live in a neighborhood like that. I lived in a number of neighborhoods like that. Like, you couldn't do certain things. That's terrorism. Walk down the street at night because you don't know who or what's lurking around the corner. You tell your kids, oh, you got to be in before sundown because they start shooting then. That's terrorism. That's terrorism on the mind of a child. But this does need to be remedied by Black folks, because why? Even though we're not the ones walking into the supermarket and we don't fit the quote unquote the profile of a mass shooter in terms of young and white, and even though we don't fit that profile, the reality is we've committed some level of terrorism on ourselves, and we've been doing it for many years. In Baltimore, we have been struggling under the weight of 300 plus murders a year. And guess who that's by? Guess who that's by? That's not by mass shooters. That's by young Black men, predominantly, who have decided that the best way to resolve an issue is with the gun, who have lost their sense of humanity, and who don't see the value of life. That's who that's by. So let's not go into a space where it's like, this is not our problem. This is still our problem. Guns in the Black community, we probably, and I don't know the data, so I'm just saying that we probably getting ghost guns, unlicensed guns, guns with no, we probably getting all types of access to stuff in the Black community. Where did we get those guns from? And more importantly, how are those guns being used? They're being used on each other. Black men killing and shooting other Black men, young Black women shooting and killing other Black women. It's crazy. Drugs, violence, that's an everyday reality and culture in the Black community, unfortunately. All right, let's go to who we got. SJC, I think is that it? What about personal responsibility? Nothing to do with culture. Personal responsibility. I agree with that. My beginning, if you never followed this show, if this is your first time watching the show, welcome. Let me just share with you. The show is called The Culture. The reason we call it The Culture is because we do have conversations, we analyze the culture. But what is the culture? What is the culture of anything? It's how we do things. There is a culture of violence in this country. There's a culture of violence within the Black community where if you don't agree with somebody, either hit them in their mouth or shoot them. Tell me if I'm wrong. And each one of us, law-abiding citizens, law-abiding Black folks in this country, we have to intentionally and consciously make the decision not to resort to violence when we're dealing with a situation. We do. We have to be intentional. Because even when we say to each other, we telling the story of the situation, you be like, look, I had to call on my Lord because I was about to bust this. Violence is not the last option. It becomes the first option. That's the culture. That goes along with personal responsibility. Let's not act like the culture is some big, some giant living in the hillsides, in the valleys of Harlem, in the valleys of Baltimore. Oh, the culture is you and I, how we go about doing things. that is based upon our personal responsibility. So yeah, this has a lot to do with our culture. If our culture within the Black community and around this country is you disagree with me, I disagree with you, you don't see things my way, therefore I should bust you in the mouth. That's a culture. All right, let's go back to the line. I want to get a couple of more in here. And I see so many new folks, so I appreciate all the new watchers on the show. Shatonia T.T. Williams. Let's see what she has to say. Shatonia T.T. Williams. Shatonia said, mental health is real, especially now with everything that's happening. Absolutely, I agree. I'm afraid this is just the beginning. We will see more deaths. Unfortunately, the Tulsa shooting, as tragic as it is. Yeah. Yep. I no disagreement there, Shatonia. There's no disagreement there. I think it's absolutely everybody needs to get their mind right in this day and time. If you don't think you need some sort of mental health assistance, and I'm not saying you don't, but just we're living in very, very serious times. So we do have to take this seriously. This is the greatest tool that we've been gifted with from the Creator, right? This. So we do have to take the time to make sure that this and that, the heart, are in a good place. Otherwise, we don't. What are we talking about? What are we hoping for? If your mind and your heart is not in the right place, is not focused on peace, is not focused on righteous dealings with one another, is not focused on freedom, justice, and equality for all, if your mind and heart is not in the right place, then we can't have a conversation. If it's poisoned by white supremacy ideologies, if it's poisoned by racism, if it's poisoned by material that you see things as being more valuable than the lives of a human being, if it's poisoned by sexism that men are better than women or women are better than men, if it's poisoned by capitalism, saying that no, the almighty dollar is the greatest measurement of success versus personal cultivation, or if your heart and mind is poisoned in such way, and we all have been, and I think I can say this because we live in America, that we have to go through a purification process in order to get to a better place. All of us. And it's okay to say, you know what, I need some help. I'm not thinking right. You can blame the parents, but your parents only can do what they thought was the best thing to do, or what they had the capacity and the ability to do. But as grown-ass adults, when you know you have a problem, what do grown folks do? You address the problem. Because guess what? You got a generation behind you, behind me, that do not deserve to have that burden placed on them. So I want to end that here, folks. So tonight the president is speaking. We're going to certainly talk about what we hear from the president tomorrow. But this mass shooting situation is so big, it's so important. It affects each and every person in this country. And we need to be vigilant about stopping the deaths, stopping the bloodshed. We're going to do our part here on The Culture, and I ask you that you do yours, but I appreciate all the comments that have been shared with us. Keep the comments going. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to check in with Culture crew member Rashad Staten to get his take on the other stories that are trending right now, which is the story of Nipsey Hussle's alleged killer and the impact of his trial, which starts tomorrow, how this will impact the community that Nipsey came from and the rest of the country. Violence in America. We'll continue to have the conversation. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new unsettling force, and we are powerful. A new unsettling force, and we are here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change. Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience. As we fight these interlocking injustices together,
When we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.
Justice is coming soon.
Do you believe that of today?
Welcome back to the second hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network, folks. Let's talk about something that I see is, it's going to be a big conversation right now. First and foremost, let me just say this. In the first hour, we did something different, just giving you a chance to share your thoughts and sharing your insights on this gun issue. So many of you checked in. We have a lot of people a lot of comments and a lot of new viewers. And if you are a new viewer, welcome to Black Star Network. Welcome to the culture. This is a great online community of folks that we call our culture crew. We have our contributors here, but the real crew are all of you who watch this show each and every day, who comment on it, have discussions about the issues that we're talking about. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful platform for us to engage with one another in a way that, I give folks space give folks space. And I really don't have, I mean, a lot of y'all check people who go come crazy, you know what I mean, who may say some wild things, but I will say for a vast majority of the comments and the time, there is real conversation. And I'm one of those folks that truly believe that communication, especially when you're talking about issues that affect each and every one of us, communication is a first major step. We don't talk to people that we don't agree with in this country. We don't talk to people that may not be from our same place or the same way we believe. But my hope is that we can break down those barriers on this show. And so our online culture crew is important. You guys make this show happen, not just with your financial support, but just with your presence. And so for all of our new viewers, welcome. We hope that we are saying something that speaks and resonates with you in your heart, and that we can get into the bottom of some of these issues. But let me just say this, folks. As we're having this conversation, folks, make sure if you did not get a chance to see the full first hour, make sure y'all go back and see the hour. And it's just us having a discussion, a fireside chat about this larger issue of mass shootings in this country. And again, President Biden will be speaking to the country at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from the White House about mass shootings in this country. Violence has to be addressed. It's not just a gun access issue. It's not a mental health issue. Guess what? And we got to say it. And when it has to be said loud and clear, it's a cultural issue as well. A cultural issue. All right. Next conversation. I wanted to bring folks up to date on the latest that happened with the alleged killer of Nipsey Hussle. This is the hip hop artist from Los Angeles who was gunned down right outside the doors of his Marathon store in Los Angeles in South LA. And, you know, his loss to the community was greatly felt all throughout the hip hop community and across the country. Nipsey grew up from humble beginnings. He was a part of, the Crips. But he was able to change his life through his music. And, I'm a huge advocate of the arts. The arts can save people's lives, man. And many of you, if you dibble and dabble in the arts, or if you are a full-time professional artist, you understand that if it was not for the arts, your life may have been in a whole different space, and not in a good way, right? The arts change people. The arts saves young people. And so when we saw and felt Nipsey Hussle being gunned down, so many of us, I know I was, it was just a sad day to hear about our brother being gunned down. Well, now, starting tomorrow, the trial for his alleged killer, Eric Holder Jr., will be kicking off. However, people are asking the question, will this conviction bring any closure to Nipsey's community of Crenshaw? Will we see any closure? Will it force us to have a different conversation about violence in the community? I want to be, in a few moments, we're going to check in with Rashad Staton, one of our culture crew members, who is an advocate of peace. He's an educator. He's an activist. But I want to share with you just a little bit about what's going on in LA. And if you live in LA, if you live near LA, if you are familiar with this case and this situation, I would love to get your perspectives on this as well. So you please post your comments on our YouTube and Facebook pages. But one of the things that I learned, and I had a chance to visit LA, and when you go to LA, like that whole Marathon store, that little storefront area, it's all shut down. When I went, it was gated. It was gated, boarded up. It's just sad. You know what I mean? It's sad. It was a sad sight and you can still feel the energy. You can feel the energy that something was lost. When Nipsey was there, and I've never been to LA when Nipsey was there, never went to the Marathon store, but I can only imagine what his store and his vision really, how much of an impact it really made on that community. And this is one of the things that one of his friends and community leader, LaTanya Ward, is wishing that as this trial begins, that we don't harp on the challenging parts of Nipsey's life. But she wants us to harp on community empowerment and reinvestment. LaTanya said this, and let's post this quote, Keenan, please, brother. LaTanya said, court trials and murder cases aren't scarce around here. She said, sad to say, the death of Black folks' futures is aplenty, both by death and the injustice system. She said, what I want to pour into is what's lacking energy, and that's transgenerational healing, starting with Black gang members. Whew. Whew. That's deep. Transgenerational healing, starting with Black gang members. Oh, man. And this is one of the great concerns about this whole case, because people are saying, is this going to bring some closure, considering this was what some people would say is gang violence, gang involvement, but will this bring closure? I would love to get your perspective on this, folks. Please post your comments on our Facebook and YouTube page, and let me know, what are your thoughts about, now we're at this point with this particular case of Nipsey's death. Does it have the power to bring transgenerational healing, especially to gang members, those who are involved in those street organizations? Does it have the power? We got Rashad. Let me know when we get Rashad in, because we want to bring him into this conversation. As Rashad's been doing some great work working with young people from various backgrounds, challenged backgrounds, families and homes that aren't always up to par. But the thing that I appreciate about Nipsey is that Nipsey always promoted this idea to not sell yourself short. When I listen to his music, here's a young brother who saw beyond his environment. And as a result of that, he saw himself being a greater impact on the environment. The sad thing about it is sometimes when you get to a certain status or a certain level, you forget where you come from. In this case, Nipsey didn't forget where he came from. He still remembered the streets. He still had a love for the streets, right? He still can be seen walking among quote unquote regular folk, even though he was a multi-million-dollar, well-known rapper. He still would hang out with the people. He still tried to share with the people. And this is the impact of violence. This is the impact of violence. See, the thing about, and I'm just going back to what we saw in Texas and even going back to what we saw in Buffalo. The thing about violence is that when a person becomes a victim of violence, you really are shooting and killing a possibility to change our reality. I'm going to say that again. Because each person, each child, each person of consciousness is a possibility. People have hope when they see a person of conscience. People start to feel good about themselves. They say, okay, so this person is doing it. But when violence cuts that person's life short, it also cuts, to some extent, our hope that we're going to get to a better place. So I would love to get your thoughts on this, and join us and be a part of this conversation. Sports actuary, he said something. He said, Farajii, I'm not ignoring you, sports, but I want to share your thoughts, brother. He said, you are the first RMU host to acknowledge Black on Black murder, so you have my support. We have to acknowledge that. I'm sorry that I don't know. I don't know how true that is, because I know Big Brother Roland. I know many of us who came from Roland Martin Unfiltered. We always talked about the impact of black on black murder. So, but my hope is that I don't want to be in that position, because you can't act as if that black on black murder doesn't exist. You just can't. So can we hope that something good comes out of this situation? Yeah, I mean, I want to see Nipsey Hussle's alleged killer behind bars. I really do. Because he took away something for whatever reason. Unless that person, and this is how I was taught. So y'all ride with me on this one. I was always taught to fight with those who fight with you, or those who aggress upon you. Otherwise, if no one has aggressed upon you, no one is fighting you, imposing their will on you, you stay peaceful. You just don't shoot and kill indiscriminately. So when I see that level of violence in our neighborhood and our community, I know that means that we off balance, psychologically off balance. I'm not talking about emotionally, not just talking about emotionally, I'm not even talking about politically. I'm talking about psychologically. We're off balance. If you can pull the trigger to kill a person that looks like you, live in the same neighborhood as you, experience the same struggle as you, you're psychologically off. You're off. Can you be redeemed? Can you be restored? I believe so. But don't take away the fact that you're off. So I wanted to get your take on this. Join us in this conversation. But the thing about Nipsey's death, and this is something that was reported in the LA Times when they talked about this. I want to make sure that I'm saying this right. This is from the LA City Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson, whose district includes Crenshaw. This is what Mr. Dawson had to say. Mr. Harris Dawson had to say. He said, "This is part of our relationship and critique of the criminal justice system." He said, "I want a criminal justice system that gets there before it happens," talking about the fact that a lot of times in our neighborhood, in our communities, we have this kind of like revolving door when it comes to criminal justice. We have people walking around the neighborhood, and y'all know this, people who walk around the neighborhoods. In Baltimore, we have a term. We say, "Oh, he got bodies on him," meaning here's an individual that is known for killing people. He might have killed 1, 2, 3 people, maybe 4. Known for killing people, still walking free, still in the neighborhood. It's like the movie Juice. Y'all remember Juice? Remember Tupac's character? The dude that, here he is, he killed somebody, then show up at the person's funeral and condole and giving his condolences to the family. That's real. We got those type of people in the neighborhood. And I'm always blown away when you have somebody who has bodies on them, and then when you're trying to clean up the neighborhood or take the neighborhood to another level, you got these individuals that are there. And that becomes a very real problem. That becomes an issue. That becomes an issue. Dejima, you posted something here in the chat. You said the difference between violence within the Black community is that the perpetrators get punished, and often the people will rise up against the perpetrators, like it was done in Nipsey's case. Sometimes I think, and Dejima, I think sometimes that happens, right? I've seen it not just in Baltimore, I've seen it across the country. I've seen that a person who is known to commit violence, a person who is the drug dealer, the big drug dealer, neighborhood drug dealer, I've seen people rise up in support of that person over the actual victim. Now, I don't know, Dejima, if you ever seen that happen, but I've seen that happen. And when one of the big things that I say, like, it's easy to blame the criminal justice system, to Mr. Harris Dawson, the LA City Councilman's point. That's easy to me, because we know the criminal justice system is in a broken state when it comes to Black people and delivering justice to us. We know that. But you know what the hard part is? I think one of the hardest things for us to do as a people, as a community, when it comes to these issues, especially of violence and when we commit violence on each other, the hard part is to admit that we commit violence on each other without any sense of humanity. Like, we want to stick up for the stick up boys. We want to defend the perpetrators. And that's a culture I think we need to change in this country and in our community. Look, if the neighborhood has to get clean, but there has to be some consequences to the actions of those who violate the trust, the safety of the neighborhood. Where are the consequences? Where are the consequences? It's sad, but here's my take on that. It's sad to put another Black man in jail, but guess what? Guess what? That Black man who committed the murder against Nipsey or any other person, what should we protect them? Should we defend them? Because maybe not in this case of Nipsey, but for all of the victims, that's not fair to them. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to the victims. And then when we protect them, we don't make them change their ways. We protect them to allow them to continue. And I'm saying enough should be enough at this point. Enough should be enough. We can't keep losing the lights in our community to violence and then not want to impose the consequences of that on the perpetrators. Yeah. So, Dejima, to your point, you reposted and said the neighborhoods have to get cleaned. I agree. We have to demand something for our votes, bring businesses and resources to the neighborhood. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. That's what we saw with the case of Nipsey Hussle. You know, he had Marathon Boutique. I know he mentioned that he had started a dispensary or he was getting into that business. I mean, he just became this shining light for a lot of people. He turned his life around, right? He went into becoming a legitimate businessman. He wanted to do something for the people. And see, look how the poison gets up in a person's heart that they say, you know what, we don't like this dude. I don't care. Yeah, look at Dejima's comment. Thank you, Dejima. You like, I don't care. This dude made me feel this way, or he embarrassed me, or he did this, or he did that. Therefore, I'm gonna take his life. See? And that is problematic for me because the neighborhood got to get clean. Shitonia posted a comment on this one as well. Shitonia T.T. Williams said, I was born in the 60s, so the 70s, 80s, and 90s were my formidable years, right? And we as Black people had way more self-respect than we have today. Today, it's all about self. I got mine, you get yours. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Shatonia, I couldn't agree with you more. But how did we get that way? That's the question. How did we get to that place of I got mine, you got yours? How did we come from, I'm black and I'm black and I'm proud in the 60s? We pumping the black fist in the 70s. But something happened in the 80s. Drugs entered the communities in the 80s. Hit Baltimore, Washington. Come on, y'all know the cities, right? Crack cocaine, heroin, hit the streets hard. New York hit the streets hard, right? And I mean, of course, it wasn't like we went from heaven to hell. We had our problems in the 60s and 70s, right? But there was a culture. There was a culture. We had an understanding of who the common enemies of our progress and rise was in the 60s and 70s. Then in the 80s, we became the enemy of our own rise because drugs got into the conversation, into the picture, right? The black father was taken out of the home. I mean, we can go through the litany of stuff of how the black community started to be picked apart piece by piece, from the breakdown of the black family to the breakdown of the black businesses. I mean, just picked apart. By the time you get into the 90s, woo, we gone. Then you put in the music. Then you put in our stories being told by other people. Now our history is being rewritten, and we don't, because mentally and emotionally, we in a different place, right? Drugs and everything, and the war on drugs and police brutality, all this stuff started to crop up in the 90s. And guess what? We're not in a right frame of mind to combat the forces that have broken us down. And we are in a mode of recovery right now, 20-something years later, 30 years later. We still trying to recover. We still trying to recover now. So any light that comes in from the community, like with Nipsey or anybody that shows us a little bit of light, the poison has already entered the neighborhood, and boom, we want to snuff out the brother. We want to snuff out the sister that's trying to show us to be a little bit better, that you can get from nothing to something. And we get mad at that. That's why a lot of our black entertainers and black celebrities, they go through this dilemma. I've heard their stories. They go through this dilemma of not giving back to the hood because it's like, oh man, I can't get back. I want to get back, but if I give back, they're going to try to draw me in. So music became the outlet. Sports became an outlet. They move all the way on the other side of the country. You know what I mean? Because the forces of the hood are so strong. And we just trying to figure it all out. Let me see this up. Real Brooklyn, real quick. Real Brooklyn says it's most important to have Jaquan aim to be an NFL player than a doctor, lawyer, or something other than being a rapper or a ball player. It is. Look, we can tell our boys, you could be the rapper, you could be the ball player, you could do all of that, but be a rapper with a doctorate degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do it all. You really could. You really could do it. You know, hip hop is a young man's sport, as they say. So you could do that for a couple of years, brother. That's fine. Get your coins from that. But that don't mean that you still can't save people's lives at some point in your journey. Real Brooklyn, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for posting. Davey said, this is 90s rhetoric and y'all think it's going to change. Cultural poverty is a myth. Black on black crime is a myth. We are products of our circumstances. Davey, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, bro. What are you saying? Cultural poverty is a myth? Black on black crime is a myth? Davey, what city you in, brother? See, it's a reality in Baltimore where I am. It's a huge reality. It's an inescapable reality here in Baltimore, black on black crime. And I know that it's not, Baltimore's not the only city that's struggling under the weight of this level of self-hatred. So I'm not sure where that coming from, brother. Davey said capitalism was never okay. Not in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. It's always been in crisis. Yeah, I'm not worried about capitalism. I'm not worried about capitalism. I'm worried about people's lives. It's just real simple for me. If it don't impact people's lives in a positive way, then why should we keep investing in it? Because life is more important than dollars. Any of you that are watching, y'all know money comes, money goes. But once you dead, you ain't coming back. Right? That's just the, in the term of the Lion King, that's the circle of life, baby. Like money comes, money goes. But once you dead, you ain't coming back. You're not coming back. All right, let me get a couple of more. Shalinda checked in and said gang violence grew because of the drugs as well, fighting over territory. Yeah. And a lot of these gangs, if you look back at the Bloods, the Crips, when I lived in Chicago for a little bit of time, I kind of studied some of the gangs there. You know, they got over 100+ gangs. It might have changed because this was some time ago since I lived there. But a lot of those gangs came out of a place of desperation where brothers felt like they needed to band together to deal with the police brutality at that time in those neighborhoods, right? To deal with other forces that they felt like, you know what, I need an army to deal with these forces. It wasn't always, the gangs didn't always come from a place of destruction and terror on black folks. It came out of the gangs were like a survival mechanism for black communities. The same way, look, the same way that we saw white people when they came from, you know, when you see what is that Leonardo DiCaprio movie? But it talks about I think it's the movie about New York, and they had the 5 gangs. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But that movie, that's the way it was. The Irish came, right? And then the Italians. Then the Jews. I mean, that Gangs of New York. That's what it's called. Gangs of New York. Brother King Lee is always on top of it. Thank you so much, brother. Gangs of New York. Look at the story of that. So gangs is not like a black thing. Gangs is about self-interest, self-preservation. But it got co-opted once drugs got into the picture. It became something else. Instead of being these gangs being used to defend the community, they start to become the enemy of the community. All right, let me just take one more. Let me see if we can get one more. Let's get Brother King Lee in this real quick. He said in the 1980s, many communities started seeing some of the ice cream truck vendors selling dope and ice cream. Damn. We in a very crisis moment, folks. We're in a very, very crisis moment. So as I'm closing out this part of the conversation, folks, with Nipsey Hussle and with the alleged killer of Nipsey Hussle's case starting, the trial starting tomorrow, we should have some different conversations about this. We see these things happening. We know these things happening. But at the end of the day, we can't be silent about these things anymore. We're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about some other trending topics. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all. I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Just been having a number of discussions, and I hope that you've been engaging and you appreciate what we're bringing, and the comments and the level of engagement has been crazy as folks have been checking in. So many of you have been checking in, posting your comments on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page. And that's exactly what we wanted to do today. We wanted to just have a show where we can talk directly to you as the viewers. And, you know, it's great to have voices to come to you to help us to contextualize these conversations, to give us some insight on the issues and topics. But then it's something else when we can just have a one-on-one. And I wanted to do something different today. So I appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of it. This is a community. This is the community that we have built and are continuing to build. So many of us, and I call y'all my culture crew online, you know, this is a part of our community. And as part of this community, it's being able to share, to give space to one another's view and insight. And then at the same time, even if we don't agree, you know, I'm not going to rip you apart. I'll respectfully disagree with you, respectfully. But we got to have a discussion. We got to have a discussion because I'm tired of wearing the rose-colored glasses, folks. I'm tired of seeing things for what I hope them to be and not for what they actually are. That's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of calling a spade a diamond. Call it a spade. You call a spade a spade. I'm tired of acting as if none of this stuff that we have been experiencing is impacting us. I'm going to just blow this off. None of this stuff is worrying about is nothing. I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to just keep on doing what I'm doing, focusing on getting money. We can't. How can you avoid this stuff? How can you look past this stuff? How can you act as if all of these things that are happening around us is not happening around us? How can you do that? Unless you are intentionally, consciously cutting yourself off from reality. And you want to live in a fantasy world. It's not to hurt anybody's feelings, but at the same time, if we want to make the progress, if we want to see something different happening in this country, we got to face reality. The reality is this country is in trouble. The reality is Black people in this country, we are in trouble. And if we don't become active in changing our own condition, then we're going to go down further. We are. One other story I wanted to bring to your attention. This is something I thought was really interesting. Elon Musk. Y'all know who Elon Musk is. So apparently, Mr. Elon Musk, who is, working to become the owner of Twitter, he put out there that any employee of Tesla, he demanded they must return to the office for in-person work at least 40 hours per week, or they'll be let go. Folks, what is going on? Now, this news of the policy was disclosed in a series of leaked emails that an electric car news site saw, and they put it out there on the general public. But let me share with you what Mr. Musk said. He said, anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, this is what he said, of 40 hours per week or depart Tesla. This is less than we ask of factory workers. He also added that employees' offices must be a main Tesla office, not a remote branch unrelated to the job duties. He said he would directly review and approve any request for exemptions from the company's return to work policy, but emphasized to his staff, if you don't show up, we will assume you have resigned. He went further on to say, Tesla has and will create and actually manufacture the most exciting and meaningful products of any company on earth. This will not happen by phoning it in. Wow. I'm trying to figure out, and maybe y'all can help me on this. I'm trying to figure out the words to describe this. Oh, I know what the word is. Capitalism. This is capitalism. This is overlooking your own safety, overlooking your own mental health and well-being to work directly, to work for the almighty dollar, to work to produce something, a product for the almighty dollar. This is capitalism. This is capitalism. Now, some of you might be advocates of capitalism. Say, well, we need this. It's good for the market. It helps to create supply. It helps to maintain or control supply and demand. You might be all in about it. But how often do we take a moment to really let people know the other side of capitalism, which is when you have to deny yourself at the expense of the dollar? That's what I'm talking about. Mike, I want to put Mike's. Let's put Mike's comment on there. Mike said that consists of a hostile work environment. Workers have the right to refuse. You're damn right, Mike. That's what I was thinking, brother. I was thinking the same thing. Like, now all we doing? Let's keep this. Let's keep this for what it is. Let's say it for what it is. You're producing Tesla cars, right? Electric cars, very popular cars. A lot of people are buying them, right? They're popular cars, but they're cars. They're cars. In the big scheme of things, if Tesla cars weren't on the road, they weren't on the market, would anybody be dead as a result of that? You see what I'm saying? I mean, you want to try to run one of the biggest social media platforms, but you're telling your workers, you better keep working you better come into this office, or we're going to consider that as a resignation if you don't. As if a pandemic is still not present. Inflation is not present. People are uncertain about a lot of things in this country. So uncertainty and anxiety is certainly present. But you want me to come to help you make more cars. That's making you richer. And that's giving me pennies compared to the profits that you're making. Belinda Skinner. Belinda, you always got something to say. Belinda posted her thoughts, said, Farajii, this is slavery, period. Word it however you like. Y'all saw the Emancipation Proclamation, right? Let's go to Carol. Carol said, hey, they all need to quit and we need to come together for a better solution. One of the things that if you didn't see this happening in this country during this time, the power of the employee, right? We haven't really talked about on this show, and I've actually reached out to the brother Chris Smalls from Amazon, who helped to start that union, the first union of Amazon. But we haven't had a real conversation about the power of the employee in today's work environment. I'm not talking about 40, 50 years ago. I'm talking about today's work environment. Today's work environment requires that the employee is not the slave. As a matter of fact, the employee is the front runner. They're the driver of any company. And we haven't talked about the fact that employees today are demanding a different type of relationship with their employer. Could you imagine if Tesla workers decided to go on strike? Could you imagine if Tesla's workers decided to organize a union? Could you imagine if Tesla workers said, enough is enough, and we're going to not do any work until you hear us and until you give us a better circumstance, a better environment that we can work adequately in? Could you imagine that? Davey said there would be less African children in cobalt mines if Tesla wasn't on the market anymore. That may be the case. We know, and we know that there have been a number we know that the mining of of diamonds and jewels and the natural resources of Africa has always been a part of the capitalistic system of this country. We knew that. So I'm not going to go back and forth with you on that one, Davey. I'm just thinking to myself, the gall, the audacity of Elon Musk to tell people, if you don't come back to work, you're going to be seen as one who resigned. In a time like this. See, you stepped out your lane, Mr. Musk, because you don't realize that if an employee decides enough is enough and they walk off out of that plant, they walk off the job, they walk out of the office, your empire starts to fall. Your empire starts to fall. Damon Blissett said, my wife works in a hospital. This is why I got the workers exemption from my job. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. See, this could be a great opportunity for us and again, once you know who you are, once you take off those rose-colored glasses and you start to tap into the power of yourself, once you see that, this could be a great opportunity to redefine the relationship between employee and employer in this country. I'm at a point, and we only got a few moments left. I'm really starting to see, it started with COVID. We started to highlight and we started to see a breakdown. We started to see a breakdown in the healthcare community, in the healthcare field. We started to see a breakdown in health disparity in terms of Black people getting less adequate health care versus white people. I see that. Now it's becoming more and more clear. I'm taking off the rose-colored glasses and I'm seeing America for who she really is, right? It's becoming more and more clear to me that unless America change her ways, it only leaves us to make drastic decisions about how we should move forward. Unless America changes her ways. I'm starting to see that people really don't care. They don't care. I mean, we can go on and on. The solution is, what are we going to do about it? As I mentioned this yesterday, folks, when I listened to that promo for the Moral March on Washington happening June the 18th, and I say, if you're in the area, if you're able to join, by all means join. Be a part of that march hosted by Reverend William Barber and the Poor People's Campaign. They don't care. We live in a country that really doesn't care about the health and well-being of its citizens. We live in a country that said, okay, y'all had enough rest from COVID. Okay, fine. Even though from one source, we're saying COVID is still alive and well. Y'all need to be careful. And there's another voice, and there's another force that's saying, y'all need to get back to work. Y'all need to get back to normal. This country needs to move forward. The dollar needs to be made. Y'all need to work. Like all of this other stuff. Forcing us to be in a space where we have to choose whether we want to work or whether we want to preserve our mental state, our mental health. I'm starting to see that this country doesn't care. You getting mad at workers who are still on edge about COVID, who are trying to make sense of their livelihoods at this point, and you telling people that they're going to lose their jobs if they don't return to the office because you want them to make some more products. Where's the care? Nisa, 1971. Elon is an egomaniac. He thinks every lane is his lane. Ha! That's the problem. Because in a capitalistic society, the rich man is king. Y'all heard me? Janelle Fields, Janelle always checks in. She said, Farajii, I think folks got it twisted. If there is no negotiated contract that stipulates certain details, the employer has more rights than you think. The right to work is a myth. That's why you might have to create a union. That's why you might have to get organized. I agree with you on that, Janelle. Chris V said, these corporations only care about the almighty dollar. And guess what, Chris? That's passed on to us as being a part of those corporations. Then we start to get the mentality that the only thing important is the almighty dollar. Great comment from both of you. I'm done. I love this one. I'm done. Employees always has the power. We have to use that power to our advantage. Facts. 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 That's where we are right now. If we don't tap it, if employers don't tap into your power, if you don't tap into your power as a human being, let alone as an employee, you're always going to get railroaded. Somebody's always going to take advantage of you. That's the thing about capitalism. That's the thing. The thing about capitalism, it makes it feels like you have no voice. That the finances is the almighty voice. That's not true. That's the capitalistic system, but in a system of where human beings, the lives and the value of human beings is king. No, that's not true. My life, my mental health, my state of mind is more important than making a dollar for you. And it becomes, and if you impose your will on the will of the employer, where you start to try to force them to come back to work, or you threaten them. See, that's abuse. That's abuse, man. That's abuse, especially considering it was a situation that was beyond our personal hands that took us out of the workplace. Now you get mad and say, oh, y'all, if y'all don't come back to work, we'll see that as being a resignation. Okay. Okay. The country got to change, folks. As we close out tonight, and I'm so happy that we've had these this fireside chat with you, the country has to change. We have to tap into our power. And if we don't tap into our power, if we don't see how important our voice is, if we don't stand up at this point in time, if we don't recognize that we have been taught and cultivated and conditioned to think a certain way, to be a certain way, then we're going to find ourselves always at the bottom, always complaining, always losing. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of it. I need to win in 2022. Do you? I need a win in 2022. I need a win for Black people in 2022. And I need a win for this country. And I'm talking about the people of this country. Those who are working to try to make people's lives better. We need a win. Because I'm tired of losing. And silence is an admission of losing. All right, folks. I appreciate you so much, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining me for this fireside chat today with us as we talked about these issues. Make sure y'all continue to support us. BlackStarNetwork.com is the website. Download the app for free. Make sure that you let your friends and family know about it. They can give and donate financially, but if not, if you don't have the wherewithal to do it financially, you can certainly share with your family and friends that that we are doing this great work of Black-owned media, unadulterated, unfiltered, unapologetically Black. But guess what? It's not just for Black folks. This is good media. That's for everybody that is tired of the same old discussions. This is for people who are looking to cultivate their consciousness. I don't just appeal to Black people. I'm appealing to people of good moral and consciousness. Good morals, good consciousness. I'm trying to appeal to us from a different space. It's not just about race. It's about how you think. It's how you believe. We have to challenge these things each and every day. And that's what we're doing here on The Culture each and every day. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for all of the great comments. The Culture Crew online community is growing. Let your friends and family know that we stream here every day, Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We replay the shows all throughout the day. Big shout out to King Keenan for keeping these shows replayed, and so much more. So thank you for your continued support. Big shout out to my production team, along with King Keenan. We have Shannon and Joel who make this thing possible. We weren't able to get our Culture Crew members on, but it's all good today because I got a chance to talk to you directly. And I hope you've enjoyed the conversation just as much as I have enjoyed talking to you. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Big Brother Roland Martin with Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.